future-proof is Zi Bai going to be? Let's talk about it. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. Zi Bai is shaping up to be an excellent deal for literally any kind of player. Extremely free-to-play friendly, is not reliant on any of her 5-star teammates in order to perform, and is really good on budget gear. I cannot stop singing this character's praises, because she is genuinely just that good, and she is genuinely just that valuable for most accounts. And all around, her banner ends up being a great deal, and even if you haven't invested a lick of Primo Gems into the lunar meta, you're able to just get a Zi Bai and then jump straight into it without having to worry about any of her investments. Not to mention how going for her C1 just ends up being a great deal, because then you can pick up Eluga copies along the way. So great character, lots of value to boot. However, how good is she going to be in the future, and is investing in her now going to be worthwhile going into the long run? She may be extremely cheap and budget friendly now, but is that going to last? And overall, does this character have much to offer you going into the future? Genshin's meta has definitely been quite hectic for the past year or so I can understand having some reservations about a character's future value and how long a DPS is going to stay valuable for at their current level, considering how strong all of the recent DPSs have been. I think there are two things to consider when it comes to investing into Zi Bai long term. Thing number one is the fact that she's a Geo DPS. Geo DPSs are inherently rare. We just don't get a lot of them. The last one that we got was Navia, and she's still a good DPS, but she isn't exactly top tier anymore. She is still a more than competent character, but I would say the time for a new Geo DPS has definitely come, and Zi Bai is going to be a noticeable upscale. Geo DPSs just don't release that often. You are very strapped for choice when it comes to Geo DPSs, honestly. The Duran Albedo Hexarai core is a new Navia team that we recently got with Duran's release, though it isn't necessarily definitively better than using Shilunen. And all around, Navia has been at a pretty stable power level for a while now. Still a great DPS, just not cream of the crop anymore. In that sense, Zi Bai already inherently has quite a nice shelf life on her, simply because we're not going to get a replacement for her for a hot minute, and she's also going to be the definitive Lunar Crystallized unit going into the future. I don't really think we're going to get another Lunar Crystallized unit, or just another Lunar DPS of each elemental type for a long time after Not Cry comes out, if ever, because I feel like Not Cry's the time when Hoyoverse is really honing in on lunar reactions, and I personally expect us to be done with the lunar reaction archetype by the time that Not Cry is finished. Obviously, we'll probably get some more units for it down the line, but at least for now, I think Not Cry is definitely the focus here for it. So those are two different parts of this, actually. Not only is she going to be the only Geo DPS for a long time, most likely, and she is probably going to be the best Geo DPS in the game by default for a very long time, but she's also going to be the de facto unit to go for if you care about Lunar Crystallize, which also helps set her apart from Navia, in my opinion, because she has a pretty different looking playstyle to her, it seems, while still not wanting to play in a completely mono Geo team because she wants some Hydra replication for her Lunar Crystallize. So if you care about diversifying the amount of elements that you have on your account, or you just want to invest into a Geo character because you feel like it's reliable, or maybe you just generally need more Geo characters for something like Imaginarium Theater, then yes, Zi Bai is going to be an excellent choice in that regard, and I think that she is going to be the best choice in that regard for a very long time. She's really strong at the minute, and it's most certainly an upgrade over all other existing Geo DPSs, and this alone is a really big selling point for her in my opinion, and it's going to keep her relevant for reruns to come, because until we get the next Geo DPS, she is going to be the main choice. And while you can definitely still go back and keep using your Navia, or go pull for Navia instead if you prefer her, the Horse Adeptus is simply going to be better. In terms of her high Primogem based investment, well, let's say you're somebody that wants to main Zi Bai, or rather, you just want to put a little bit more into her over time, and whenever you get the opportunity, you'd like to get some extra constellations or improve her team here and there. If you're only pulling for C0R1 or just C0R0, Eluga copies are going to be one of the biggest things that you're going to be able to get for her. Eluga constellations are amazing for this character. Very good. The more you can get, the better. But at C0, it is unlikely that you're going to be getting anything more than a C2 Eluga, and even then you have to get lucky, because you very much can go 70 pulls without even getting one copy of the brand new 4-star. Getting 4 stars in Genshin can be a dangerous game, and while I would like to imagine that going for C1 can get you that C6, that is not always going to be the case. So if you do end up pulling for this character and you get multiple copies of Eluga, consider yourself very lucky. I do believe Hoyoverse will probably put Iluga on future Zi Bai banners, so I wouldn't risk it going for constellations of him on banners that are not hers, because honestly, I am pretty confident that anytime the Horse Lady gets a banner, they are probably going to rerun him. So I would say one of the best things you can do is work towards getting that C6 Iluga on Zi Bai's own banners, because you do two things there. You improve your Zi Bai through 4-star constellations, and you also improve your own Zi Bai through potentially getting her own constellations, which are good, by the way. And since you're investing into a character that is unlikely to get replaced in her role for a very long time, you're investing into a unit that likely isn't going to lose relevance for ages. It's not the same as investing into a universal support, yes, but if you really like this character in particular, and you just want to invest more into the new best Geo DPS, the Lunar Crystallized DPS, whatever your reasoning may be, then yes, it is going to be a good choice to do so. Now, her teammate is where it gets a little bit trickier, because Columbina is a character that I honestly have a hard time advising getting constellations for. Usually when it comes to a Genshin support, getting constellations on them is advisable if you're interested in high Primogem based investment, because it's universal, it affects your entire account. But my issue with her in particular is that that is a very niche character, and I would honestly only suggest Columbina constellations if you really are big on lunar teams and you really want best in slot for your Zi Bai. Because I will say this much. Columbina is never going to be replaced as the best Hydra applicant for any of the lunar teams, the Horse Lady included. So if you're simply interested in having the strongest possible team for her, then Columbina Constellations will be worth your Primogems, because she is just not getting replaced in that regard. But I should add that Columbina Constellations themselves are of questionable value, because unless you're really big on lunar teams, I would say there are better places to invest your Primogems in, and it's better to put your constellations either into a DPS or a more universal support. But do know that Columbina constellations are in fact an avenue, and over time as that character gets more reruns, you can consider going for more copies of her if you want to strengthen up your Zi Bai, or just all of the lunar DPSs on your account in general, because I will add, there is something nice about doing that. If you don't really want to go for DPS constellations, though I will say the DPS constellations these days are really crazy, but if you don't want to do that because it's just too specific for you and you don't really want to tie constellations to one particular character's performance, then going for Columbina constellations is a nice alternative, because at least it means you're buffing up all of the lunar characters on your account. I'm just looking at this a bit more holistically, because Zi Bai is going to be the best Geo DPS in general, irrespective of the whole lunar meta thing, for quite a long time, whereas Columbina is mostly going to be tied to the lunar meta, which is really freaking strong right now, and lunar DPSs are really strong, Zi Bai included, so her constellations aren't a bad investment. I'm just giving you this heads up now, and yes, investing more into her is not a bad choice. Now, when it comes to your 4-star teammates, I've already said that Iluga is a really good investment, and that's the character that you're probably going to be trying to get more copies of over time, and her final teammate, you're most likely going to be using Goro, but the thing is, because it's also a 4-star, he can only be so strong. The thing is, when you look at long-term investment, a 4-star may be really good, but their power level is obviously going to be capped at a certain point, whereas with 5 stars, obviously their constellations are going to scale a lot harder than a 4 stars. But with that being said, Zi Bai is extremely strong right now, and her premium team is just as good as the Evernote DPS premium teams, considering that she literally has 2 4-stars in her best team at the minute. And I actually don't want to suggest that they're going to give this character a premium 5-star support, simply because she would just be too strong then. Right now she is pretty balanced, even though she does use budget teammates in her comp, and she is still really strong while doing so. So I just kind of doubt that they're going to want to buff her up even more, because as she is, the character is already really strong, and I think a limited 5-star support for her, unless it was a character that didn't really do much, would just be way overkill. Now I will say, I can see someone in her team getting replaced. Goro, because Iluga is being tailor-made released for Zi Bai, I don't think he's getting replaced. Columbina is obviously never getting replaced, but I can see Goro or just the 4th slot in general getting replaced, because you can put multiple different kinds of characters there, Chiori, Zhongli, etc. You have options. But I do think that if Hoyoverse was to make another teammate for Zi Bai's team, it would probably be in place of Goro, but I just kind of doubt that they're going to do that, at least anytime soon. Because not only would that just make the character feel way too strong, but they've already made Eluga and put him on her banner. They have basically already answered the question of who is her premium support going to be, and it should be noted that yes, okay, that's a 4-star, but 4 stars are arguably harder to max out than getting 1 copy of a 5-star, so I would say that his premium tag still remains, even if it is a 4-star, because you're gonna struggle to get multiple copies to max him out, at least on the first banner, unless you have a ton of Primo Gems and are planning to all in. So in the future, I honestly cannot see her getting another support for her team, because I think that she is plenty strong enough as is. Lunar Crystallize is just good enough as it currently is, and unless Hoyoverse wants to make it really extra broken, I just kinda doubt that they're going to be doing that. At least I hope they wouldn't. That would be absolutely insane, and the damage ceiling would be somewhere in Celestia at that point. I do feel like she just kind of naturally has good future-proofness just because she's a good Geo DPS, which naturally inherently gives her some uniqueness that sets her apart from other units, and naturally makes her a pretty valuable pull for a vast majority of accounts. And I feel like she is definitely going to be really strong going into the foreseeable future. She will always be relevant until we get our next Geo character, and even then, I do still think she is going to be good. Consider, Flynn's is the definitive best Electro DPS in the game right now, but that doesn't mean Varessa is bad. She is still a very good competitive unit. Same thing here, even when Zi Bai eventually gets power crept by another Geo DPS, she will still be good. Consider that we're literally in the situation right now, because Navia has been power crept by Zi Bai, but Navia is still a very good unit. The cycle will probably go on. So ultimately, I do believe her to be quite future-proof. She's a very safe investment just off of being strong and having her element alone. She's very budget-friendly, and yet she still has very good avenues to invest into. And I feel like unless you're a whale that wants to see 6 5-star supports, you will have more than enough to invest into here over time. Hopefully this video is able to tell you whether Zi Bai is future-proof or not. This has been Juice, signing out. And Navia, your presence in the meta will never be forgotten.